they're going to be there for the long haul. And he also told them it's a good idea to hold on to your stores for the long term. But we don't know. We're at the top of Chof Tes Amud Beis. So we're looking for a makor that chazaka is 3 years, according to the Rabbanon, that it's always 3 years, which takes us to Ela Amarava, which is 5 lines from the top of Daf Chof Tes Amud Aleph. Ela Amarava, Shata Kamaisa Mochel Inish. The first year, if you see somebody eating the pears in your field, you'll be mochelim. Tarti mochel. The second year, you'll also be mochel. Tlas, 3 years of pears, loy mochel. That's a very, very good kasha. The Gemara is going to bring that up in just a minute. You sound like you're referring to someone very specific at this moment. Could you share names? The Gemara did. Dr. Gemara, Omar of Nachman, Hadra Ara, I'm sorry. I skipped. Amar Labai Elamayata, Ki Hadra Ara, Tihader, Levar Miperi. After 3 years, when I'm Moicha and I get my land back, I shouldn't get back my Paris from the first 2 years, because you just said, Rava, that the owner is Moichel. If he's Moichel, the Paris of the first 2 years, so why does Alama Amar Rav Nachman Hadra Ara V'Hadra Peri? At the end of the 3 years, when the owner is Moicha, not only does he get the land back, but the person who was sitting there and eating the pears has to pay back all those pears. According to you, he was Moichel. Ella Amar Rava Shata Kamaisa Loy Kapadinish. Not that someone's Moichel. He's just not makbid on the land to make an error, to make a macha. Tarti like kapit, plus kapit, but he's never moichel anything. Elmer Lea Abaye, Frekta Abaye, Elamayata. We're talking about Duvi's friends. Elamayata going Hani Devei Bar El Yoshev. The people from the family of El Yoshev, the kapti, never mind on an apple. Afilu Aman the Cholaf Amichu the two. If someone should as much as set his foot a millimeter over the border, they're going to freak out. Hachanami. The La'alta of Chazaka, according to you, that there's only Hakpad of 3 years, or it's totally in the Hakpad of a person, are you going to tell me that for the family of Baal Yoshev, they happened to be in a very known family who were very wealthy, and they were very, very makbid on protecting their rights, even sometimes through not legal manners in Shas. Thank you very much, Madi. I was listening to Dr. Henry Abramson, on Aldaf. They have like little bites every day. They have like a 2-minute bite of his history. So he's an historian. He's a Jewish historian. So he said over that the family of Baal Yoshev are quoted often in Shas as examples of people who are very wealthy, but very, very makbid on anybody infringing on their property rights. When we had to go and hand it by Yoshev the Kapti, I feel about the Chalach Amitra. Did who? Hachanami the Alta Chazaka, V'chetema Hachanami, and you're going to say, yeah, for them, even if someone simply puts his foot over the border, if they don't say anything, that's a riot if the person bought it. Are you telling me that Chazaka to each person should be different? That's not at all a practical way to approach Chazakas. Ella Amarava. I have to stop because today we're doing the transition from Rashi to Rashbam. So I already crossed the threshold in the Gemara. So let's have a look at the last couple of Rashis that we have to hop onto, and then we'll transition into the Rashbam. So I'm going to learn Rashi Mochel Inish. Mochel Inish al Perish Karkoi Ladam Oichlin. The first 2 years someone's Mochel. Kivan the Atrei Shnin Mochel, since people would be Mochel the Achilas Perish of the first 2 years, the Hader Ira the Mishiyatal of Ir Lasoiv Shasayim, the Hader Ira Lebailim, after 2 years when the Bailim are Moicha, the land should go back to the Bailim, but Levarmi Peri. The Paris of the first 2 years should not go back to the Bailam. The person who was there on the parka who was squatting should not have to pay for the payers. According to you, Rava, the owner would have been Moichel. Alam Amar of Nachman Lakam B'Shmaitzin, that we're not Moichel. And here is where the Rashi stopped, and the Rashbam takes over. Does anybody know why Rashi stopped suddenly over here? Is there a story behind it? There's no Rashi in the Rambam, right? No. So Alam Amar Rab Nachman. Why did Rab Nachman say? And now we're going to learn Adkan Pirush Rashi Zatzal, Ikan Veilach Pirush Rabbeinu Shmuel Bar Meir, which is the Rashbam. He's the uncle of Rashi. Rashi here it says in the little base says Kan Meis Rashi. So Rashi.
Place where he went.
Yeah, the belt. Oh, he went to Victoria Lake. Uh-huh. So people in Victoria Lake, Baruch Hashem, are very alive. It's like the story that Lipa said over when he went to England. Everybody asked him, "Did you come to die?" He says, "No, I came to live." So Zok the Heilige Rashbam, the first Rashbam on Masechta, Alam Amar Rab Nachman Lakamon B'Shmaitzin. Later in our Masechta, Nachman said, "Have machzik bekarka chaveiroi. Be also idich v'aisi sahadi the achlon tartan shnin v'lo yoiser. If he only had a right for 2 years, V'amar Rab Nachman Paskin over there, hadru ara v'hadri peri shoshtei shanim." So because of that, the Gemara says it's not that someone's moichel; it's tati like kapti al masha ze yorid l'soich sadeu shel chaveri b'lo rishusay. When you peri loy mochel, he's not moichel the payers, and that's why, in fact, he has to pay back all the payers. Tlas kapit that you shouldn't even be in my land. Hoyel v'shileish b'avlosay or v'yavaltay the konish b'lo rishusay b'ailam. 3 years you did this. 3 years you took my crop. Zesher sosak v'laymicha. It must be vaday machrin. So, Frank Gemara, according to you, that it's totally in Hakpada, so the children of Bar Yosef, who are very makbid, Hachanami del Alta have a chazaka, Lemishi Yord, Lenichse, the Ve Bar Yosef, Hoyel V'lay Michu. So, to Gemara, if so, Nosatet Vrech Lishun. So, Ella Amarava, what is the final shot in the Gemara? Why you have 3 years chazaka? Because it's all about the Lekeach. Shata Kamaisa Mizdar in this story. The first year, someone is going to be very careful to watch his star and keep his documents in order. Tati Utlas Mizdar. The second and third year as well. Tfei Le Mizdar. But the 4th year already, he's no longer going to make sure to transfer all of the papers from last year's accordion folder to this year's accordion folder. Am I revealing too much information? Dr. Gemara. Amalei Abaye. Dr. Abaye. Elamayata, if that's the reason, macha shaloi b'fanav lois have a macha. So oibazaya macha shaloi b'fanav, which we already know from yesterday, is a good macha. It shouldn't be a good macha. The amarlei, because the lakeach, the person living in the field, is going to say, imachas bapoi. If you would have been mach in front of me, I would have known loud and clear that there is an error on my property. Hava mistaharna b'shteroi. I would not have thrown it away. After 3 years, rather I would have continued to hold it because I knew that I have to fend off potential ma'arin. The Amarlei, they tell him, no, don't tell me that if he would have been moich in front of you, because even if he was moich not in front of you, chavra islay, the chavra islay. Zok Rashbam, imachas ba'poi havim is the harna b'shtaroi yoyse migamoshan umeshani, and the Gemara answered to that question. Don't tell me no baloney that you had no idea that there was an issue that you should hold on to your star longer. Chaver islay v'noidelach shemachisi. And you surely know that I was moicha. If in fact you're saying the truth and you didn't steal the property, rather you bought it fair and square, beautiful. So Zok Tosh was a very important point. Ella me'ata macha shaloi b'fanav. Oimeri, the lekaluk mi pircha d'Abaye, ella keshahein be'ir achas. The only way this whole discussion makes sense is if they're all in the same city. The Ibir Acheres, if they're in a different city, Heichi Parach, the loy say macha, who say chazaka, why would you say that it's not a good macha if he was moich out of the city, and that would make it a chazaka? Because if he was moich out of the city, maybe the person being machzik in the field now would not have heard about it. Adirabba, it wouldn't be a good chazaka b'chlal. Even lo have a macha, lo have a chazaka. For the same reason that it's not a macha when the original owner is moich, because how is the landowner supposed to know about it? If Yen is moich in a different city, so therefore, it wouldn't be a chazaka at all, according to Abaye. So this only is relevant if they're in the same city. Okay, I wonder how that works nowadays, where communication is worldwide. In those days, there's no other way of communication other than being there in person. So I'm not sure how that would impact chazakas today. It seems not. It seems not, because we're going to see cases today where a guy was living out of town and he would only come in a couple of weeks a year, and he could say, "I didn't know. I didn't have to be moicha. There's no time to be moicha." What do you mean the building? On Bathurst, the building homes. What do you mean the building? On the east side of Bathurst, that they're busting open the windows right on it. Yeah.
Water's in there. It's such heavy. That's like right front and center. You never see anybody going there.
We also have squatters. But how good?
Not only that, if you look at the back, as you can see, dump trucks dump their loads in the back.
But how could squatters be there? The Gemara says, "Kol chazaka she'eni moitayne lo chazaka." How's that possible? They must be a maratzim too. Not only are they canoe, they're maratzim also.
By Brooklyn Furniture also dumped over there. So they come overnight, they open the gate.
Zog to Gemara. Amar Afuna. Shaloi shanim sha'amru. That we say you need 3 years of chazaka. Hu sha'achlan retufas. They have to be consecutive. They have to be consecutive years. Zog to Rashbam. Sha'achlan retufas. Aval municha shana shniya. If he wasn't there the second year, the achala shtei shanim shlishis revius, that's not a good chazaka. Because matzi amar bala sada haidelay machaylach. No, I wasn't meicha. Hainu mishum the uvers loshana shniya. You abandoned the field during the second year. The galus hadaita, that proved to the world the lavdida chavoy that it's not yours. Nobody who owns a field is going to just abandon it. The hilchach lozerato, so that's how you didn't plant it that second year. So therefore, they have to be consecutive. Isn't that exactly what our Mishnah says? Meaning, they have to be consecutive. So tomorrow, no, that's not at all what our Mishnah is saying. Our Mishnah is saying they have to be full years. But they don't necessarily have to be consecutive. That they have to be consecutive. Gewaltig. Omar Rab Chama said, Umoidi Rav Huna is moide that sometimes the 3 years of chazaka don't have to be consecutive, but asra the muvri. There are places where certain years everybody decides that they don't plant because they want to let the karka regain its strength, as the Rashbam says on the first wide line. Not to deplete the karka of its nutrients. So there it would be a good chazaka, even though he skipped a year in between. Why? Because he treated this field like anybody would treat their own field. So that's clearly still a show of bias. It doesn't have what Rashi said, by abandoning it 1 year, clearly you're not bilam. No, a bilam would abandon it 1 year. Umiu, however, shana shayvira eina oila lecheshbin shalish nechazaka. That year that you didn't plant it, even though you're doing what everybody else does with their fields, that's not a show of ownership. So that wouldn't be counted as one of the years of chazaka, but at least it won't mess up the consecutive 3 years. Tzarech lishmer shtorei Yosy mishalosh shanim achi yilkot shalosh shanim. There has to be 3 harvests, 3 years of harvest that happen in order for it to be a chazaka. And if the owner of the field, or the fellow who claims to be the owner of the field, I came in the middle of the 3 years, and they saw the field was abandoned, and that's why I wasn't moicha. So don't say now that the 4th year passed. I lost my field. I came in the middle, and no one was there. We could tell him, you should have been moicha, even though you came and saw an abandoned field. Even though you didn't plant it, even if you're leaving a field and you're abandoning it, if it's not your field, you take your crop from last year and you're out of there. He went and plowed, after he harvested, he plowed the field. We learned that you do that to destroy all of the weeds and to prepare the plow for the next planting season. But the fact that when this fellow came, he saw that the field was plowed, that clearly shows that it was in fact not abandoned. By seeing that it was a plowed field, you who claims to be the real owner should have understood the reason why you found it abandoned one year was not because it was abandoned. It was because I'm treating it like my own field, and like everybody else in the neighborhood, we're leaving it fallow 1 year so it could rejuvenate its strength. And the proof is in the pudding. It was ready to be plowed. It was ready to be planted because we had plowed it after the last harvest. So Zok to Gemara. So this is an exception to the 3-year rule. So Zok to Gemara. Pshita, it's pashut that if it's abandoned for 1 year because everybody abandons their field, that wouldn't break the chazaka. Latricha, the ikad mover, the ikad loy mover. There are some people who will abandon and some people wouldn't abandon. The high gavra mover, and this person who was making the chazaka decided to abandon the field for that year. You might say that a person who claims to own the field can tell him you don't have a chazaka, because if it was really yours, you would have planted it even that year that you in fact left it fallow. Kamash Valon, the Amarlay, the person being machzor could say nobody else was planting that year. So Chada Ira, Ukulibaga, I should be the only one in the whole valley to plant my field. Normally we hire a shomer, all of the people in the valley hire one shomer to watch all of the fields and we split the cost. Here, if I'm the only one who plants, then I'm going to have to hire a shomer by my own. That's not worth it. And therefore, I didn't plant that year. The inami, or I could say, I left it fallow, not because it was too expensive to plant, because I would have had to hire private security. It's because the of the tvei. I want to leave it fallow 1 year for the same reason everybody else did, to strengthen my field, because the following year it will have a much higher yield. So that's what we learned. We learned chazaka is 3 years. It's because 3 years is the maximum amount that somebody would hold on to his star. Unless he hears ear, then he would hold on to it indefinitely. And we also learned that although the 3 years have to be consecutive, if there's good reason to leave it fallow 1 year, that wouldn't break the chazaka, but it wouldn't count as one of the years of the chazaka. So now we learn chesed the batim. Our Mishnah says batim. Batim is one of the things that you're telling me you need a chazaka of 3 years meslays. Via batim, there be a mama yadi. By day, you can have edim that see someone draining around in the house. Velelo yadi. Nobody knows if someone's in a house at night. So how are you going to have edus that are testifying that you're there at night? You're going to ask me by a field no one either is testifying at night. I guess people don't always know what's going on in people's houses. They didn't have lights in those. I guess the candle didn't last the whole night, right? So Zok Rash, a field, its only use time is during the day. No one works a field at night, so you don't need any type of chazaka at night. The year chazaka is day, not night. So that's why that would be enough. But in a house where the norm is to live there at night, If I knew the guy only lives by day, didn't live there by night, that wouldn't be a good chazaka. So in fact, he needs proof that he was there at night. How do people know? You need proof. You can't make an assumption. I have to prove that I was machzik. The neighbors, because Shivavi made the yadi b'yamam uvelel. Neighbors know what's going on by the neighbor, not only by day, but also by night. So it's possible to have this. Like Duvi is saying, the light on this, that a neighbor would notice the lights on. Someone just walking by wouldn't always be there putting the lights on, but you would know. Because I watch Sesame Street. We just learned in Perek Akbar. In Perek Akbar, we learned about Sesame Street. Right? We learned about the guy who crushed sesames near the guy's mansion, and it was shaking the grouch's can. So he had to complain. So Rav Amar, Chaim's laughing. Rav Amar, Rav said, Kagoyin to Asu Beitrei. It's speaking, were two Adim that came, but Amrin they said, Anan, I have a simple way how you have a chazak for 3 years. Two people come, Adim come, but Amrin they say, not the person who was masik in the field. He didn't live there 3 years. But Anan Agrinon Mine. We rented for the last 3 years, we rented the property from this fellow. And we lived there day and night. So we were there. So we are making the chazakah on his behalf because he was our landlord. So there you have a simple latest because it was them themselves that were there. This guy's coming and saying, get off my property. He's telling the renters, get off my property. And they'll say, no, we've been renting it from this fellow for the last 3 years. Really? So pay me my rent. If you paid him, I'm sorry, you were defrauded. Now you got to pay me all my rent. So, Frank the Gemara, how could these Edom be believed? Of course, they're going to say that they made a proper chazakah. Because if not, now they're going to be liable to pay rent a second time to the fellow who came to claim from them. If they don't say that there's a chazakah here, and therefore the property is fair and square, belonging to the person who they paid their rent to, Aminalu, you know what we're going to tell them? Zilu, Habu, Le, Agarbesa, Lahai. Now you're going to have to pay rent to this guy who's claiming and has proof that the property was originally his. Zok to Gemara, Rabbi, come on. Amar Le, Dayani de Shpili Hachidaini. Only a foolish dying is going to accept Eidos when they're the Gebadavar. That's not what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about? Where you could trust the tenants? Milo Yaskinon could go into Nikiti Agarbesa. They have the rent for the 3 years. The Amri Laman Liaste, they're asking Bezin, who should we pay the rent to? We've been here for the last 3 years. Who should we pay our rent to? They're not the Gebadavar. Because right now, if Bezin Paskins that it belongs to the claimant, to the Ma'ir, they'll pay him. Now, these Edom are not like Gebadavar. Amar Marzutra. Marzutra said, and I'm going to learn this according to the Rashbam, because Tosfos has a different shot. Amar Marzutra. Tosfos learns this as a whole new halacha. Tosfos learns Marzutra is coming to give an eitzah how the Edom will be believed. So let's just stick to the new shot. Amar Marzutra. V'ton v'Amar. Leisu trei sahadai lasudilei. The doorbay. Talashni. V'yamamu v'lelta. Tainosetai. Zok Marzutra. Normally, if I have Edom that I live there for 3 years, so I'm the machzik, I bring Edom that I lived there for 3 years, Bezdin accepts it, and it's a good chazakah. Bezdin doesn't say, you got to bring her out at night too. No, the assumption is, if I lived there 3 years by day, I was there at night too. The only time we engage such a taina that we ask the machzik to prove that he was there by night as well, and they'll have to bring these extra type of Edom, like a neighbor or a tenant, that's only if the Ma'ir brought that up. So the only time we force the Machzik to bring a raya that he was there at night as well is only if it was asked of him by the Ma'ir. So only the Toyin v'Omar, Leisu Trei Sa'adai, Lasude Lei, Klashni, Yom V'Lava, then to Nasitaina, but we wouldn't tiny that for him. We would, as a default, we would consider Edom that he was there 3 years, even if they only see him by day. we will consider that good ages because the storm of the mill says someone's there by day and by night. But if the Ma'ar says, no, I need proof, the Ma'ar is dotting his I's and crossing his T's and he's being mocked in every detail, then in fact he has a right to demand proof of that as well. I'm sorry?
Time.
You need a good time, exactly. Umoidi Marzutra, and Marzutra is Moida. So what did Marzutra say? What did who on the choice?
What does Mazutra's
Marzutra is telling us something very important. That normally we accept Edus just that they were there for 3 years.
Mazut is not going on the previous thing to say that they're not on the guy by.
Correct. Marzutra is saying a new hollow, according to the Rashbam. According to Tosfos, that's not pshat, but this is according to the Rashbam. Umoidi Marzutra beroichlin hamachzirim ba'yarais the avagav deloitan taninolei. Chachik normally, if I bring ages that I was there 3 years, we don't force me to bring ages that I was there at night unless it's demanded of them. If the ma'ar is a roichel, meaning avagav the sphere l'marzutra the tain tanasi taina avul onu lo nitam b'shviloi moidahu heichadav ma'ar roichel, meaning he didn't live there all the time. He passed through. Roichel amachs amachazer ba'yoris limkar kishute noshim ve'enoi chayzer li'iroi ki im l'zman orach. He's someone who travels a lot. He's not always around, so he can't make any specific tinus because he doesn't have the tool and the information with which to do it. The ablagab deloiton laisi machzik sahadi the darba ritzufos yomam v'layla there are not taninulei. You know why? Because maybe the reason why he didn't think to ask that is the delma mishum like kavia b'masa hirtzik. This guy's never around. He's an easy target to steal his property. So he's a very vulnerable person because from the fact that he travels around and is very rarely home, and even then only for short periods of time, he's a very vulnerable position. Therefore, Bezdin comes to his defense. It's very possible that when this peddler was in town, that night, the masuk wasn't there. And therefore, he wouldn't have been able to know that there's someone being machzik in his house. Maybe that's why he wasn't moicha for 3 years, because he never realized that somebody was squatting in his house. There, the machzik needs much more airtight proof. He has to prove that he was there for every second, and it's not possible that this peddler came back to his property and didn't see them there. It's impossible. I was on vacation that night. It's impossible that he didn't see me, and only then will it be a good chazak. Okay, Gavalti. Umoida Rav Huna, and Rav Huna is Moida. Rav Huna says that you have to have consecutive years or consecutive days, right? It has to be consecutive. You're a chazaka. He's Moida b'chanusa de mechuza, which was like a seasonal type of business. L'moshel, let's say a place like a fairground, right? There, even the rightful owner will show no ownership at all during the off season. It's only during the on season. So b'chanusa de mechuza, there it's similar to a soda where you don't have to prove that you were there at night. Let's have a look at Rashi. I'm sorry, at the Rashbam. Which are chanuya shemoichin ben lechem v'yayin. There, sorry.
Any stores only use during
Let's finish the Rashbam. Let's finish the Rashbam. Can we just finish the Rashbam? Ain't choshen chenosoi. The avagav the loydor boy baleilois chazakam al Yosy she'ein diras na'alabayin. So what he's saying, any store should have the same type of symptom. Exactly. Anything that you're not there all the time, you shouldn't have to prove that you're there all the time. You only have to prove that you're there during the normal places when people are there. Let's have a look at Tosfos. We have a little bit of. We have time.
What about squatters' rights? Like,
There's no such thing as squatters' rights. Chazaka sheni matayna, right? Only in corrupt societies like liberal strongholds
I'm wondering,
are those allowed.
squatters' rights. Whenever he comes, there for years, whether he's there at night or he's there at day.
No, squatters don't have rights unless he has unless the squatter can show he bought it.
The guy should
the commercial world, the different states have different things. But in certain places, if they're there for 3 nights already, they can say that they're there and they can't throw them out. Okay, so let's just quickly run through Tosfos because we are up against the clock. Pirish umoya lahem imechziko gimel shonim v'afagav delav shalosh retzufois elam ifuzaris. Even though there's gaps, even though chayav that's how it's used. The ka'atri, the muvri bagi, like we had on the Aleph. Correct Tosfos oibazoi even came in time came pshita the madrav huna kedaparach lo'il kabe bagi. Why is this any different than the case of a field that they leave fallow sometimes? Why is this a new chiddush that Rav Huna is bringing to the table? We've already discussed this on Amar Aleph. Yeshleimar lefisha b'nei adam she'enam chenvanim dorin b'hen dein b'yoyim u'v'layim. That's what I wanted to respond. I thought it was a response, but it's really Tosfos. There are actually people who live there as well. I just read yesterday that Elon Musk doesn't even own a home. He actually sleeps on the couch. He sleeps on the couch in Tesla. And when he goes to San Francisco to his rocket company, he actually sleeps by friends in their second bedrooms. He does not even have a house or an apartment that he rents. Gimel, even if you own the house, I don't think you would have a mortgage payment. Okay. Those would need retufas if they live there. So Tosfos is saying a huge chiddush. It actually depends on how this person used it. If this person lived there, then he would need to bring a raya in Balayla. If this person says I used it as a store, then this person would say that I used it as a store and therefore I don't have to. Now it's already a chiddush because by bagay everybody lives in it. Okay, let's go back to the Gemara because we're up against the clock. Zok the Gemara Vayter. Now we're going to have some interesting stories. Rami Bar Chama for Abukva Bar Chama, 2 brothers decided that both the wives wanted a Goyte, but neither of them could afford full-time help. So they wanted to split a Goyte. I already see trouble coming. They're splitting a Goyte. So what happened was is Zov and Ahu Amsa, they bought this Goyte, Bahade Adodi, and they split it. Now the thing is, if let's say you use it 3 years, and I would use it 3 years, when you use it 3 years, you'd have a chazaka, and then you could say it's yours. So I guess Rami Bar Chama and Rebukah Bar Chama didn't fully trust each other that way. And they wanted to make sure that neither one would get a chazaka on it. So therefore, Mar Ishtamish Ba Yishar Nishlishis V'Chamishis Umar Ishtamish Ba Shniya Revius V'Shishis. What happened was is a third party came along and said, this is my Amma. Novak Ir Iluya. The Ir came along and said that this is my Amma. Also look, and they didn't have a Shtar Mechira. Also look, the Rabba. They came to the entire Rabba. Amalu, my time of Disuhach. Why did you switch off 1 year Mori, Rami, 1 year Ukva, Rav Mori, 1 year Rav Ukva? Is Kihechi the Loy Sechasku Adadi? Because you didn't want the Chazak. You know what? You were successful. You don't have a Chazaka. Kihechi the Lidchul Loy have a Chazaka, La Al Manami Loy have a Chazaka, and if you don't have a star, then you're going to lose it.
Between themselves, there's no chazak, but the purchase was a chazak.
How is it?
It's a partner.
But nobody.
If 2 partners buy
So
something,
Zok to Gemara, V'loya Moron El Lekos of Itra. That's only if they don't have this. If they don't have this agreement in writing. They have this agreement in writing of a cause of Itra, Kala Islay. Then Avada it would be a chazaka, even though it wouldn't be a chazaka for one over the other. So you're saying automatically it should be that way.
they always have a partner.
Oh, very good. So
Yosy, I'm going to ask a quick klotkash here. Not like a field and a house that I can't ask the item itself. Ask the shipka. If she's that good, she's not a mute. Ask her who she's owned by, who she worked by. I'm not saying to count as an agent, but it's something.
ask Shmuel Lerman. Ask anybody who services multiple families, right? Let's say you provide food for 3 families. In camp, there's families so you're serving 3 families. Would you rather serve the family with 10 children, or would you rather service the family with 1 child? So she's for sure going to say, I belong to the family where my job is easier. Do I have to fold 30 pairs of integachkas every day, or do I have to fold 2 pairs of integachkas every day? So she's a very negated of it. But no, not true.
Not true.
What's not true?
They work for the yuppies, but
Well, that's a different story because they have other tutors. Yeah. So Zok to Gemara, there's a three-way machlokes. What it means. There are those who learn itra kala, and even 1 year makes a chazaka because of the itra. There's such a shita. The rest brings down. There's another shita that says that itra kala, meaning after any one of these two had 3 years. So after the 5th year, so you had 1, 3, and 5 with the itra. That's a chazaka. And then the third shita that the Rashbam likes the best, that Tosfos likes the best, is that no, after 3 years, even though it was 1 year by me and 1 year by him and 1 year by me, the 3 years will be a chazak. Amarava, achla kula puts me base right. What if there's a big piece of property? What if there's a big piece of property, and you use the whole property, you plant it and cultivate it? There was one patch in the property that was a base riva that you left fallow. The law is kana kula puts me base riva. Because there you didn't eat the pears, you left it fallow. No reason for leaving it fallow. There we have a chazak. Amar v'una b'reda b'shua v'loy amaron ella the bar's riyah. You only say that if you left it fallow, he didn't make a chazaka there if it was a plantable patch. Avalav bar's riyah. What if it's full of rocks? It wasn't. What if it was concrete? What if it was a basketball? What if it was a basketball court? Right. So lav bar's riyah. That's not something you could have planted, and therefore kanila agavara. Since you're cutting the land around it, we'll say that goes together with it. I don't understand. Not all properties can you plant on. Pick a property like Manhattan that's full of bedrock. How are you going to plant there? So how are you going to have a chazak on that? Ella, by using it to its other uses. A field that cannot be planted, people use for other uses. You store your animals there. And you spread out your fruit there, or in Manhattan's case, you could build skyscrapers there. What? Not every inch, but you have to use the property, right? You have to use it. Like even by planting, not plant every inch. 3 trees in a chamishim al chamishim is called proper use, proper saturation. This fallow area of a roiva in the city, in the middle of this property. He can't just leave it fallow and ignore it, and that will be a chazaka. If he used it for other types of uses that people would normally use such property for, only then would it be a chazaka. What's the difference?
If it's not a fence, okay, this is.
But how does he know whose fence it is? Maybe somebody else has it. I'm not sure if that's a raya. We've had many cases where the discussion is, can you make him pay for the fence to steal on property? It's a health thing. I don't know if the fence is a chazak. Guy goes over to his friend and says, "My boys, what are you doing in my house? Get out of my house." So his friend told him, "What do you mean? What am I doing here?" I bought it from you. I don't have a share anymore because I'm here for 3 years already. Amalei told him, "What are you talking about? How could you have a chazaka? There was this was a house that had a different apartments in it, and I lived in an interior room in this building, and I used to walk through your property every day. So you never made a chazaka because every day I walked through your property. I walked in, I walked out. That's why I got in and out. So you didn't have a chazaka. You never had a chazaka. I showed my ownership. If it was your property, how could I just walk through it every day? I walked through it every single day, and therefore you don't have a chazaka. Also, look, I made Rab Nachman. So they came to Rab Nachman, to the entire Amalei. He told the person who was machzik, Zil Baror Achilascha. Unfortunately, you need to prove that you had exclusive use of it during the 3 years. Otherwise, the 3 years that you claim you were machzik is not a good chazaka, because he's claiming that you were machzik. Amalei Rava, Hachidina, is that halacha? Let me ask you a question. Who is the Moitzi Mechaveri over here? Who would you say is the machzik now? I would say the people squatting are the machzik, right? And the original owner wants to take it away from them. So Frek Rava, Dina Hachi, Hamoitzi Mechaver Olavaraya. Why does he have to prove that he was machzik in it and I never walked through his property? Maybe I have to prove that I walked through his property. Why is it incumbent on the muchzik to bring the raya?
Have to say, get off my throat.
No, because you don't have exclusive right. You weren't living in my property exclusively.
The guy sitting here is like, this is stoning. He's not saying like, get off my property.
I hear. Let's see Rashi. How Rashi?
Kind of isn't the mitzi. It kind of is the bal machzik that you were never machzik. I was here,
Right now,
I remember the
right
mitzi.
now you're parked there. and I want to throw you out. That's what happens now. You're there in the property. I want to throw you out.
I knew that you had a chazaka, and I'm telling you, I was there.
But I'm trying to throw you out. You are there now, right? I'm trying to throw you out. So
No, but he's claiming, yes, but he's claiming you bought it from me.
There. Right now, he's there with his luggage. He's parked. He's moved in there. He's living there. He's there. You want to throw me out. So you're much you could have any lumdish way to explain why I'm Muslim. I'm there. You want to throw me out. You want to call the sheriff. You want Bezin to call the sheriff and throw you out of there. That means you're a much. Let's see what the Rashbam says. What B'shchuni Gavoy happened. Tosh also has a different opinion that we hear. I lived in one of the inner rooms. I rented it to you. You were living there under my control, and I walked through the property every day. So
Kind of why they were going there.
you're there. Can I let you be there? I was doing you a favor. I let you move in. That's the biggest mistake you can make nowadays. But I let you move in, and I was on top of the situation. I walked in and out every single day. Rashi Tosha says, "V'havali oyrach Allah." You're my guest. V'nirali shahaya lo edim shahaya b'shchuni gavoy. It must be that the person who claims to be the real owner must have edim that he was there, because avaloy hayu yodim. But what was unknown? What was unknown is that I actually walked through this property, or did I get out through a different place where I didn't infringe on their ownership? If he has no edim at all that he was there, to have a b'shchuni gavoy, how could Rab Nachman go and turn to the people who are living there and say, prove you have a chazaka? You have no proof at all that you were even there, right? The auto yeshlam leida chazaka leida shlahaya ma'ar ba'oisib bayis kol shalosh shonim. The ma'ar doesn't have to bring rise to such a point that that he was there 3 years and nobody else is in the neighborhood. They don't have to bring such a riot. So I have a riot that I was there 3 years. You claim you were also there. You'd have to bring a riot that you were there. And now the dispute is only whether or not I walked through your tenancy area while I was there, which would show you not alone. Sorry? We're going to be comparing this to other cases in just a moment. We're going to discuss that soon. So therefore, he needs a raya that he was there for 3 years, and the discussion is only did he walk through his property. So right now, Rab Nachman said that he rules with the me'arer. Rav is saying you should say mocha mechaber olav haray. For Rami the Rava ad the Rava, for Rami the Rab Nachman ad Rab Nachman. I'm going to show you that the Rava, who's the big proponent of a mocha mechaber olav haraya, does not say this svara everywhere, like Moti suggested, and Rab Nachman, who does not say a mocha mechaber olav haraya, sometimes does. Tahud Amalei the Chavrei. Somebody told his friend, Kol Nichse the Bay Bar Sisin Mizavdinallah. He bought a whole parcel of land from Bar Sisin. Whatever I bought from Bar Sisin, I'm selling that whole package of land to you. Hava Hahi Ira, there was another portion of land that he did not buy from Bar Sisin. But for some reason, it was called the Bar Sisin land, even though he didn't buy it from Bar Sisin. So Hava Hi Ira, Davar Mikri Devei Bar Sisin, Omar Lay, and the Lekeach claimed that that's part of the parcel of land that I bought. And the Moicha saying, no, that's not what I bought from Bar Sisin. It's them, it's called Bar Sisin. Omar Lay, so the Moicha said, Ha lav Devei Bar Sisin he. It's not what I purchased from them. The Kriye who, the Mikri, the Devei Bar Sisin. It just has, that's the name of the property, but that's not from the package of properties that I just bought from Bar Sisin. So they had a fight. Also look at Rab Nachman. They went into Torah, and you know what Rab Nachman said? Amoitze mechaver olav haraya. Ukma b'yad the lekeach. He put it into the hands of the lekeach. Amalei Rava Dina Hachi.
Yeah.
Also look at Rab Nachman. Ukma b'yad the lekeach. Am I reading this wrong? So let me look at the Bach base. Ukma b'yad the lekeach. It seems like the lekeach is the moitzi.
The Lekai is the much because he wants to say that I didn't tell you.
But Rab Nachman didn't go bust the Mochser. Let's just see that. Amalei Rava Dina hachi hamoitzi mechaveroi olav harai. Rava said hamoitzi mechaver olav harai. 1 second. Let me just. I'm sorry. What?
Once the buyer can prove his faith.
The buyer would be the moitzi. So and Rabbi Yochanan put it into the hand of the lekeach. Rabbi Yochanan put it into the hand of the moitzi. Okay, so but we'll have to see tomorrow. It seems like it's not a steer. I'll have to figure out why it's a steer. I thought I understood it yesterday, but I guess what happens when I go too far, Hashem says I'm shutting you down because you got to get the shachos. So I got shut down. So we'll figure this out tomorrow. Oh, you have a good day? Oh, by the way, I wanted to tell the Oilam, 2 nights ago, one of our chevra made chassan in Lakewood. Frank Nussbaum, made chassan 2 nights ago in Lakewood. I forgot. He calls Frank, yeah. I forgot to bring it up. By Victor, we all left him a WhatsApp message that day. But by Frank, we forgot to leave him. Mind you, it's his 3rd chassan this year. He's and he's still standing. He had a big smile. Can you imagine?
That's taka chazaka, Yosy. 3 chasanas in a year.
That's right. That's a chazaka. There's a lot of mochi mechaveres happening there. I can tell you that much.
Yosy, a few days ago, we learned the Gemara. You remember that? Doesn't show me where it is again. That because the Chachamim called it south, that's why it was known as south. Remember, it was a Sunday's blot. Do you remember it when we were discussing if to daven to the south or to the north?
We were discussing how do you know that Tzafon, that Bavel is in the Tzafon, because the pasuk says Mitzafain Tiftach Hara.
So the pasuk says that it's Tzafon. That's what made it Tzafon.
Right.
Where the Chachamim said it's Tzafon, not because my compass is telling it to me.
That's right. Correct.
Because Divrei Chachamim say that it's north. Was a pasuk or was an Amira?
Over here we're talking about Amiroim. Nachman and Rav are Amiroim.
It was an Amiroim who said that he brought a raya from the pasuk. He said that's how I know it's Tzafon, right?
Yes.
Okay, Shkoyach, thank you.
Shkoyach, be very well. Have a good day.